The next thing you're going to do is a series of value scales, and a lot of it has to do with different texture that you're going to deal with and in using pencil again. So in your portfolio, you should have this sheet right here, and it says, it's got really, really specific measurements for you. So if you forget, look to your sheet first because there's a lot of info on there. But you're going to need a ruler. And you're going to line up your ruler just like what you see here. You're going to do 4 different value scales, and they're all going to get set up the same way. So if you want to set them up at the same time, that would work. You're going to use your HB pencil when you start, and you want to make sure you're not pressing down too hard. Practice using the pencil correctly now. And you're going to do, you're going to end up with 10 half-inch wide boxes. So to do that, we're just going to trace our ruler to 5 inches and then make a mark every half an inch. So they're significantly smaller than the first value scales you did with charcoal, but pencil also takes a lot longer, so it'll be plenty of work. So I just make a mark every half an inch. So, and I would do the same down here. So I have 2 to line it up with. And connect them. So you're going to end up with 10 little narrow rectangles here to fill in. All right, and you're going to do that for all 4 boxes, so they'll all get set up that exact same way. All right, the only thing that's going to change from one value scale to the next is the technique. So the first one we're going to do is blending, the second one is hatching, the third one is cross hatching, and the fourth one is scumbling. All of them are going to have the same amount of boxes, all of them are going to have the same value changes. This has been photocopied a billion times, so it's really, really dull, and we're going to exaggerate our values a little bit more than this. But your darkest value is going to be over on the right in every box, or in every value scale, and they're going to gradually get lighter as you go to the left. Don't use your finger. There's little tips on here. When blending with your pencil, do not use your finger. That is the quickest way to make it look messy and really childish. So you want to make sure that you are layering like crazy. Blending is achieved through layering your pencil marks, okay? That is the #1 thing to start with. So it says use a ruler to measure your boxes. We covered that. And then it says make sure each box gets darker. No 2 boxes should look the same. So sometimes it's easier to start with the dark one, your darkest one, and work your way to the lighter side. So you're going to use your 4B for the dark values. Okay, your 4B pencil is going to be easier to make those dark values because the lead is softer, so it doesn't take as much effort to push it down on the page. So it's a little bit nicer. So you want to be really careful. If you just go in and do this, you're not done. Okay, you're going to fill the whole box evenly with that value. And you don't want to press hard. You want to press really lightly, and you want to layer, 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 layer. This is not going to be my darkest value. I'm going to have to go over it. This is not very dark, and that's okay. I don't want to press hard. I want to be able to erase. If you press hard, remember when we started our plant drawing, if you press hard on this paper and then you try to erase it, you might erase the graphite, you might erase the pencil, but you won't erase the indent. You can't really get rid of that, so you want to avoid that altogether. So you want it to be nice and even, and that's not very dark. So to make it darker, you don't have to push harder. It'll start looking really shiny too if you do that. So to make it darker, you want to layer. I'm not pushing any harder. I'm just going over the same spot more than once, and it's going to get darker. And you can tell I'm not doing it on the edges yet, and you can tell that the middle is starting to get darker. So you don't need to push hard to make the values dark. Just layer, 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 layer until it's the darkest you can get it. And you sharpen this. And you do want that to be the darkest value you can come up with. You want to have extreme changes in value. to show showing a full range of value is going to make your drawing look a lot more 3D. That will be, just like the still life, something that you're graded on. And you do want the box to be even. The other thing is that you want to keep your pencil marks. If you notice, I'm not going like this. They're not really, really wide pencil marks and out of control. You want to keep your pencil within about 1/4 of an inch. You never want to get really, really wide because you don't have as much control over that. Nice, condensed, close motion. Then you can make it pretty even. So if that's going to be my darkest value, I know the next one has to be a little bit lighter. Again, you've done value scales before, and so you know it doesn't have to be a huge change for it to be a change. So just just significant enough to be able to tell that one box is different from the other. And in blending, this would be what you're going to use for skin tones. So you don't want to see individual pencil lines. You want it to be as smooth as possible. Another thing that a lot of people run into when they're drawing is they end up with sort of seams. I'll show you what I mean. They'll start out drawing, they'll start out shading, and they'll be filling in just one little section, and then they'll move on to the next, and they'll end up with like a little seam in between them, and there's a way to avoid that. So just a step down. So this is what I mean. If you're just going like this, and then you do this, and this, a lot of times you get those little uneven seams. So sometimes it helps to go back over in a different direction. It'll kind of mute that. I tend to use the side of my pencil a little bit. If you haven't noticed that, I don't really use the tip to do this. You cover a little bit more ground. It's a little bit softer. And you're gradually getting lighter and lighter and lighter. Now, the blending one is probably going to be the easiest to do, and it's also the one you're going to use the most for your clothing, for your face, if any of you have your hands in the picture. But the hatching and the cross hatching and the scumbling are for textures. It might be your clothes, it might be your hair, but we are going to practice those things as well. So my next one, I'm not going to finish this blending one because I think you understand that, but I'm going to move on and just show you the hatching and cross hatching. Scumbling is just like it sounds. It's basically just scribbling. So you get a little bit of that, a little crazier texture there. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to do this. All right, so same amount of boxes. The next thing I'm doing though, is this one here, hatching. So all hatching consists of it's exactly what it sounds like. You're just you're filling that space with a series of marks that are going in the same direction. I don't care what direction you decide to go, that's up to you. They go diagonally here, you can go up and down, you can go straight across, I don't care. But it's just like the process is the same. If you want it darker, you're going to go over this area more and more and more and more. If you want it lighter, then you don't go over it as much. You don't press any harder to make it darker. You got to be really careful of that. You don't want that shiny metallic look with your pencil marks. You'd fill this whole box as evenly as you can. Layering, layering, layering to get your hatching. And then again, the next one, you're still doing the same thing. You just obviously don't layer as much so that it's lighter. Now here's a good test. Each of these should be the same. So once you have this one, this should be the same level of value. This should be just as dark here as it is here, and the same for the bottom too. This gray should be the same gray. This gray and this gray should be the same gray. So once you have one, you can kind of use that as a standard for how dark to make every other value scale. And then cross hatching is exactly what it sounds like. You would start out hatching, but then you're going to cross back over. So I'm not going to fill out another thing for it, another box, but it's just really quickly. You're going to start out hatching in one direction and you cross back over. So it's a crisscross pattern. Just a little bit different texture. Again, still the same level of value. You're still doing all 10 boxes. I'm just trying to save time here. And then the last one is scumbling, and that's exactly what it sounds like, scribbling. So again, same thing. If I want to make it darker, I'm going to go over the same spot more than once. But I'm doing it with this scribble instead of blending smooth or the hatching. So that's the difference between those four. And that will take you quite a while. This is one of those things where if you rush through it, it's not really going to help you later. And remember, you're about to draw your face. It can be really frustrating. So take your time on this. If this is difficult for you, if you're having a hard time getting the values even and realistic on these flat boxes, it's going to be very difficult to do it on something complicated like your face. It really is a complicated thing you're trying to do. So make sure that you use this for what it is. It's a practice. It's supposed to help you better. You don't want to be practicing when it's on your own face. Let this be your practice. Okay? So all of that should be in your portfolio, ready to go as soon as you are done with the art craft sheet. Okay?